Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I'm going to be doing a short video on why I love the Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. I've talked about this book so many times on my channel now. It's my favorite book, one of my favorite books. And Dumas has this incredible ability to create a very rich world where you feel extremely immersed into it. And he covers so many different themes and I love his writing. I've read quite a few of his books now. I keep acquiring more versions of the Three Musketeers because it is one of my favorite books. I think I have like 7 or 8 different editions now of the Three Musketeers, which is ridiculous. And I have quite a few limited edition ones as well that I've been hunting down over the years. And I will continue to hunt down more because to me, it's a timeless classic. It has everything in it. So I'm going to jump into a couple of different areas. I'm going to try and keep this fairly quick. Otherwise, I will just keep going on and on and on. But this is basically me trying to convince you to read it if you haven't already read it. The first thing that I love about this book is the themes that it covers. It covers things like loyalty, friendship, identity. These are all things that I grapple with on a daily basis. And to see it written so beautifully in a book where it affects every single character is really unique, I think. You know, we have 4 main characters that we follow. We have D'Artagnan, of course, who's trying to join the Three Musketeers. And then we have Athos, who is essentially an aristocrat, but he's kind of done with the world. He kind of reminds me of Vimes a little bit. Then we have Aramis, who's a man of the church, but he's also a total womanizer. And he kind of goes through this inner battle of like who he is. And then you have Porthos, who I actually think is one of the most interesting characters. His mother was a slave, and you know, being in France at that time, he suffers a lot because of that. And so we have, you know, these 4 main characters that we follow. They're all struggling through something, and it's nothing trivial. Like, these are pretty big things that they're struggling through. And I'm not going to go into too much detail what each one is struggling with, because you should just go and read the book. But they all have something that's holding them back. And it's really incredible the way that Dumas brings together these 4 very complicated people who have very complex backgrounds, but is able to make them extremely relatable. I felt I related to every single character in some way or another. If I was to pick 2 characters that I maybe most like, I'm probably a mixture of Athos and D'Artagnan, which is quite funny because they're like complete opposite ends of the spectrum. But I really like the way that he writes about struggle and the way that he presents that on the page. It's a bit more nuanced. It's not like super obvious. I think you have to really get into the psyche of the characters to really understand. And I think when you can get that, it's really, really rewarding. And like I said, these themes that he covers, they're timeless themes, right? You know, I think we live in a world right now where identity is, you know, I think people are quite confused by who they are because we have all this noise, all this crap going on in the world. And, you know, loyalty is something that I personally am. I'm one of those people that I am loyal till I die, and I will do anything to help the people that I care about. And that's sometimes a good thing, it's sometimes a bad thing. It's nice to kind of see that presented in the Three Musketeers. And then friendship is another one as well, right? I think they're kind of closely intertwined. And this whole concept of finding your own family and creating your own family is really interesting. And I think Dumas does it really well. The second thing I really like is, and I briefly mentioned this, is the characters. The characters really carry this book. You have a very wide cast. You have the 4 main ones. I mean, D'Artagnan, it starts off with D'Artagnan, and then you meet the other 3 Musketeers, and then you have this cast of side characters. You know, you have the Cardinal, the King, and the Queen. You have 2 very strong female characters, Madame Bonacieux and Milady de Winter. The thing I really like about those 2 characters is that they are both incredibly strong women, but they are strong in very different ways. And I think he shows that women are not one-dimensional. I've definitely seen comments about the Three Musketeers being misogynistic. Don't get me wrong, there can be instances of that throughout the book, especially when it comes to D'Artagnan. But A, remember the time that it was written, and B, look at the way that he actually writes the female characters, because I think he writes Bonacieux and Milady de Winter really well. The plot is crazy. It's amazing. It's very intricate. There's a lot going on. It has a little bit of everything. It has action, has political intrigue. it has romance, it has, you know, fencing in it. Like there's battles, like it's just got a little bit of everything. And so if you're looking for a good all-rounder, if you're looking for a book that you can snuggle up and read over the weekend next to a fire when it's raining outside, in my opinion, Three Musketeers is the perfect book for that, because it's super easy to digest, I think. I know some people struggle with the writing style. You have to remember it is translated from French. If you speak French and you read French, I would strongly recommend reading it in the original language. I unfortunately can't speak fluent French and read fluent French, but you know, I've read a couple of different translations now, and I think I'm quite used to Dumas' way of writing because I've read a couple of his books now. But it can take a little bit of an adjustment. But once you get over that adjustment, the way that he brings all of these different threads together is just masterfully done. I think there are very few authors can do it in the way that he does it without losing certain threads. And he wraps everything up really well, which I think is really hard to do in a book like this, in a book of this size and magnitude. The other thing about the plot is that it's kind of set on the backdrop of like revolutions. You have France and Spain at war with each other. And it's just super fascinating to also have the historical undertones and kind of laying the foundations for the book. So if you're somebody who also likes historical fiction, you'll really enjoy this because there's a lot of that embedded in. But it doesn't ever feel info dumpy. It doesn't ever feel like you're just getting masses of text to give you context. It's really beautifully woven into the story, and he's just so good at writing. His prose is beautiful. He's just very good at weaving together so many different things and not making it feel like it's an academic task, which is really hard to do. And I guess that brings me on to the last point, is his writing style, right? His writing style just flows really well. It never feels slow. He paces the book extremely well, even during the quiet moments. And there are quiet moments where you have just characters interacting with each other, talking about things, but it never feels slow. It never feels laborious, which I think is really hard to do in a book of this magnitude with this wide of a cast of characters and all of these different threads going on. But it never ever feels like a chore. And I never ever want to feel like I'm struggling through reading a book, and I've never felt that. Even the first time that I read The Three Musketeers, I was just hooked and I needed to read it, and I've reread it multiple times since, and every single time I read it, it gets better in my opinion, and I take something new away from it, which is another really beautiful thing about the book. One other thing I will add before I wrap up this video is Dumas himself is a really interesting individual. Dumas was a soldier, but Dumas was half black, which in kind of 18th century France was not ideal. I mean, France has a very complicated history with race, and I mean, like most countries, but France, especially in Europe, I would argue is one of the most interesting things to deep dive into. And Dumas is, you know, he's half black. They used to call him a Moor. Because of that, you see topics of like race and classism come through in the book, but it never feels preachy, which I think is sometimes what people dislike about a lot of modern fictional writing, is that it can feel very preachy. He lays it out very subtly. It's there, it's obvious, but it's subtly done, if that makes sense. I mean, I know subtle and obvious kind of oppose each other, but it's there, you can see it, and you get the undertones, especially through the character of Porthos, because he is black, but it's never in your face, and you never feel like he's trying to teach a lesson. It's more like, look, this is the situation in France at the time, and there you go. You either take it like that or you don't take it like that, and that's that. And because it's not necessarily the only focal point of the book, it almost is more impactful because it's there and it's so obviously there, but it's not necessarily talked about a lot. And that's kind of what made me think, oh, like he's actually found a really good way of addressing these inequalities by not making it the central focus. And I really like the way that he did that too. So as you can tell, I love this book. I think it's a phenomenal piece of writing, and I think everybody should read it. It's one of those books that I buy for a lot of my friends because a lot of people haven't read it, even though it's like a classic. And I think everyone can relate to it in some way, shape or form. Definitely keep in mind the time that it was written, because there are certain things about it that might rub some people up in certain ways. But again, just keep it in mind of the context that it was written. Really look at the overarching themes that he's trying to address, because I think they are very relevant today and they will always be relevant. That's why it's a timeless classic, in my opinion. And, you know, this book for me is, it should get 1 million stars. If I could give it 1 million stars, I would. But let me know if you've read this book. I'm really curious to hear any of you guys, whether you've read it and what you thought about it, because I've definitely started speaking to more people about it recently, and I've heard other people say why they don't like it, and I totally get it. Like, it's your opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but I'm really interested to hear what maybe you didn't like about it, or what you did like about it if you enjoyed it as much as I did. So let's take it down below. I'm really excited to talk about this one because this book is one of my favorite books, and Dumas is one of my favorite authors. It's a book that is super dear to my heart. I have a lot of memories reading this book and learning a lot about life through reading this book, interestingly. Let's take it down below. I really enjoyed just talking about a book that I love, and I'm excited to chat about it. So with that in mind, I will see you guys in the next video. Stay safe. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.